you know, like, but in my meta game, you know, like in the meta game it will be there. But then, of course, you can say the meta games, unnecessary obstacles, are the first order games. So, you know, like the very fact that there are first order games that I have to undermine might be an unnecessary obstacle.
So it's a
you know, like
category of metagame. Yeah. Some people say that about art as well.
Yeah, that's why.
So you know, Duchamp is not really an artist. He's a meta artist. He's commentating on art. But the counter argument is that historically, you could have said the same of post-impressionist painting. And,
yeah,
you know.
of course.
So
hello.
That's clever.
Hello,
So,
it's grateful. Okay.
Hold on, because I think the first person
Just
was...
a quick question. It's like I'm so sorry, but I will make it. I'm trying to practice in these kind of games, theatrical art scenes. But it's like more not what is about, but why you make it. Can you answer what is
Why you make a work of art?
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't go into this, but many attempts to answer the question, what is art, focus on the intentions of the artist. So, you know, my intention in making this was not to make a work of art, it was to make a joke or to make a comment on about Martin Creed and works of art. But if he was doing it, he had different intentions, and so the intentions could all be very important. That's an important point I didn't bring up. So intentions of artists are absolutely crucial here, and that's the kind of thing that reflecting what art is could lead to questions about, you know, how much do we need to understand of an artist's intentions in order to understand what they've done and to judge it at all. So we might actually end up giving a lot of value to what artists intend.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for a really wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it. It's a game, I came out of it the same way I got in. We still don't know what art is. And as you pointed out very, very nicely in the beginning, you didn't expect to get an answer at the end. So I'm glad you did. And this idea, this parallel with the game is quite interesting. But I mean, go back to St. Augustine when they asked what is time. He said, if you're not asked, but if no one asks you what time is, you know. Until someone asks you what it is, then you don't know. Art is the same thing. And the game, the parallel with the game is quite interesting. I thought it was really interesting. But I'm going back to the two questions. They put art as an artifact and art as approved by the member, or the double member of the art. Well, I'm glad you did that mistake because it actually stresses the point. The other
we have a few minutes, so I'm just going to ask people to be very brief because
just two questions. One, is art as an artifact. I mean, if you include music as art, is a piece of music an artifact?
Yes, actually, I can easily answer this.
Conceptual art is an artifact?
Yeah, no, so this is, George Dickey is open to lots of misinterpretations because of the words that he uses. He uses artifact as a technical term, and for him, if you point to something, you can turn it into an artifact. It's a minimal, it doesn't actually carry any weight in this definition. So music is, musical works are artifacts that are created, they've had things done to them. It just means something has had something done to it. And that could be, you know, this is an artifact, this is an artifact, that, you know, air is an artifact when I point to it. It doesn't actually add anything to the definition.
Okay. That's one thing.
So that's the point to clarify. Yeah.
The other point is that conferred by a member of the art world. Now I come from Africa, I'm from Mozambique. And a lot of people produce art. Yeah, they're members now, is there an art world there? Yeah. Now, if there is no art world, they don't produce art.
They think that
they need the European version of the world to actually decide all past the rest of the world and in part of history what the actual art is. I find that a bit confusing.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, he revised his theory. This was the simplest version, but art world is a very broad category too, so that if you think you're a member of the art world, you are. So that if you think you're an artist, then you are an artist in this world. So it's not, it doesn't really restrict as much as it sounds as it does. A lot of people thought he was talking about an elite in New York or whatever. But he wasn't talking about an elite, he's talking about people painting in the backyard. But there are problems raised by so-called outsider artists who really don't perceive themselves as, in some cases, as making art or as part of the art world, and yet get absorbed into art galleries as on the same level as other people making works of art.
Thank you. Last question I have. Hope you're very short.
Yeah.
Brief.
Thank you for the paper. I was a bit surprised by the last point,
Yeah.
especially the way in which you explained it. So to see things differently, and by that you meant specifically works of art. So I guess my question is, that would happen to everything. So if I start investigating into screwdrivers, I would probably, and ask what is right, I would end up seeing them differently than I do now, which I have no idea. So it seems that the question of why then engage into this, it doesn't really answer the question, why would you get involved into investigating about what art is.
That's a good question, a very good question, and I've got an answer. My time's running. Actually, it's a good reason for finding more out about screwdrivers. No, seriously, because this is what inquiry is like. If you immerse yourself in a world that you're unfamiliar with, then you could go back to things that you were familiar, you thought you understood, and you see them differently. That seems to be a very rewarding aspect of life. But I think it relates to my point too, because we know, I don't think it's controversial to say that many of the greatest things that human beings have done have been works of art. So they're things which are likely at the highest level to produce valuable experiences for us. And if we can find ways in which we come to understand them differently and better possibly, that could be of value. What I didn't say as well was that, because it's rather vague, is that I think that kind of engagement where you have a Gestalt shift, even if you flip back and don't want to stick with that new way of seeing something, that imaginative engagement with objects is the sort of valuable experience that objects which don't have their interpretations locked down can give us. So the numerous interpretations of Shakespeare's works seem to me a good thing. It's not like you want the one definitive definition of one definitive interpretation of what Hamlet meant. It's part of these are objects which allow us to speculate and play out different ways of experiencing them, and that seems to be one of the values of artworks, that they're open to these multiple interpretations by the same person at different times, taking different perspectives. And that's an enjoyable thing, to look at the same thing, a familiar friend, from a different angle.
So let us thank our speaker.
Thank you.